It's great to have with us a gentleman who's going to share his story with us, a story that, at least the first half of his story, not many of us would want to be a part of. The second half of his story is turning out to be quite exciting and good. And let's welcome to 100 Huntley Street, Alan Campbell.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Now, I mentioned the first half because according to what I've researched on you, Alan, if you took your life and spread it out here, about the first half of your life was apart from your knowledge of God and living for Alan, and many mistakes and choices were made that influenced your life, that ended you up in prison. The second half of your life, many good things have happened. We're going to hear about that. But take us back. Alan, how did you get on this track that ended you up in prison?
When I was 16 years old, I got kicked out of my home and kicked out of high school. And I took the money that I had in my pocket and boarded a Greyhound bus and lived on the streets of Toronto for a year.
Now, why did you get kicked out of your home and high school?
I couldn't handle authority.
Okay.
And when I was 17, I became addicted to cocaine and got involved with the Toronto Mafia until I was 19. And a drug deal went bad when I was 19, and I almost killed someone and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. And I have now been clean since July the 4th, 1983, by the power of Jesus Christ.
Tell us about the ministry you're presently involved in.
I'm involved in a ministry called Refuge Ministries, and we do chapel services across Canada in the different jails, and then get those that make a decision for Christ discipled and mentored through a local church where they live.
I understand you have some sort of a kit, but first, before we talk about that, we have some pictures.
Okay.
Tell us what we're seeing here right now.
This is a young offender facility in Elsie Craig, Ontario, just outside of London where we live. And it's an open and closed custody for young offenders that we go into every week and do chapel services.
Is it kind of like a halfway house where they're in a transition?
Yes.
You have some sort of a kit that when these guys or gals that commit their life to Christ Jesus, they come out of the prison, you give them something to help in the process of reestablishing themselves in the community.
Right. They're provided with a release kit room, and they're given a list of community agencies, a map, basic hygiene products, and they're picked up by a volunteer who brings them to a place where they can get help with the needs that they may have.
Yeah.
But we don't reinvent the wheel. We focus very much on working with what's already being done.
Tell me a little bit about Refuge Ministries. Tell me what you do there, and then I'm going to go back and we'll take a look at your life and see where you've come from.
Sure. Our mandate with Refuge Ministry is to see the lives of those in prison transformed by the power of relationship with Jesus Christ and discipled through the local church. So what we do is we go in and do chapel services. We have the green light to get into all of the jails across Canada, conduct chapel services, and then when those that have accepted Christ are released, we get them connected with a local church. And we do that we have volunteers that will actually go and pick them up and provide them with a release kit. And we bring them to a place where we are able to direct them to where they can get help in the community where they live.
And do you talk to people individually? Do you get an opportunity to do that? Or do you always speak only in a large group setting?
We actually do both. For example, when we go in and do a young offender detention center, I can sit in a small room with 6 or 7 young offenders and share my story or minister to them in some way. And then we also get to go in and do a 1-hour chapel service where we actually take in a live band and do a couple 20-minute sets of music and have a message. So
that would be a larger group in that kind of a setting.
And we do that, and also we do 7 places in London where we live. For example, Craigwood Youth Services is a young offender detention facility for young offenders, closed custody, open custody, that type of thing. So we do a wide variety of different things.
Okay. Because I guess what I was wondering about is what are the kids like there? I mean, what are they? You say now when you look back and you say, well, I know I had one of two choices. One is that I'm going to die or I'm going to be spending my life in prison. Would that be a fairly common feeling in the hearts of these kids? I mean, when you talk to them, like young offenders and so on, do they see that or that where they're going is going to be that? That clearly just one way or the other?
I think more than anything, what they need to understand is that there is hope. And the only one that really can change their life is a relationship with Jesus Christ.
You work, I imagine you say you work with churches in different areas as well,
Yes.
encouraging them to do what? Establish a visiting program, a halfway house program? What can we as a church community do for people?
What we would like to do is be able to go into the churches where the prisons or jails are located and have them have a team put together who would like to go in and do a chapel service. And what we would like to do is simply be a blessing to them by going in and equipping them on how to do a chapel service in their local jail.
Okay.
And then be a resource for those that make a decision for the Lord when they get released.
So just helping connect in that,
Right,
in that kind of a
networking.
way. Now, when people get released from jail, do they normally go back to their home community? What happens to them? Or do they stay in the community that they were in jail in?
It can happen both ways. In our situation where we were talking about Craigwood, most of the youth that we work with at Craigwood are from the London area.
So they're back in their own community.
So we develop a resource of youth pastors where we are able to give them the name and see that the young person that gets out is connected and discipled and mentored.
Okay. Now, a lot of kids that are in jail today, I imagine, would have drugs would be a major part of their lives. Is there a program they have to go through to get rehabilitated from drug involvement, or is there any a requirement there, or is it simply a voluntary response that they might have?
We work with a number of different ministries, and for example, when we go in and do a chapel service, we have the information packages for Teen Challenge that we are able to give them. And one of our volunteers will actually take them out for the interview to Teen Challenge, and then Teen Challenge takes the next step to get them connected. We really don't want to reinvent the wheel.
No, it's a good program they've got. So, so you would be a connecting point in a sense,
a place of
referral.
A place of
referral to say, look, here's a good way to go.